Around 2 weeks ago, Path of Titans released one of its biggest updates yet, followed by probably the best trailer this genre has ever seen until now, narrated by no other than Robert Irwin. With it came two new dinosaurs, Thalassodromius and Kawekia, each offering a rather unique gameplay experience, introducing the first flyer and marine reptile into the game. But most importantly, this patch brought Gondwa, a brand new gigantic map with numerous biomes and locales to explore, beautiful vistas suited for terrestrial, aquatic and aerial gameplay. Since then, the game's popularity skyrocketed, and even 14 days later, it shows no signs of stopping. Even though at a glance it might seem like it's not as impactful as I'm portraying here, this update showcases a lot of Alderon Games has been doing for their community, and their achievements are more important than you might think. Path of Titans never truly received the praise it deserves, let's be real. From the dev's past to some questionable decisions during their development, that the game has been heavily criticized from the very beginning, even more so the moment it got the Isle community's attention. And although some of it is justifiable, there was always a biased judgment against Path in one way or another. It is impossible to avoid the comparison between POT and the Isle. Both share a very similar gameplay loop, and being in such a small niche genre like dinosaur survival, it would be inevitable to see both games clashing at some point. Hell, even some of the core developers in Path come from the Isle, so it was more than expected. It is surprisingly common to hear people saying that Path is bad for multiple reasons. The balancing is bad, the audio is bad, the growth system is bad, and so on. But do we ever hear people simply enjoy the game's progress? Before I continue, I want to make clear that this is not going to be a bootlicking video. Path of Titans is not a perfect game, far from it. It is unfinished and rough around the edges. I myself have several issues with it, with growing being the biggest, to the point that I made an entire video about it months ago. So the game is not a 10 out of 10 by any means. But I also believe that Alderon doesn't get no way near as much credit as it should, and this last update should be the eye-opener we all needed to see just how far this game has come since 2019. POT's vision is simple but well defined: to make a dinosaur survival game with MMO features that synergize in order to promote a highly social gameplay experience where players have a multitude of activities to perform with friends or strangers. And on the social aspect, they did their job pretty well with the introduction of character emotes and a lot of interactable items, allowing players to use those features and immerse themselves through roleplay, if they so wish, of course. And that's exactly what happened, with Path being probably the one with the highest number of realism servers out of the 3 dominant games on the market. And that was only the beginning. One of their highlighted features is their precise movement system. With the press of a button, people can perform a multitude of actions such as turning in place, strafe, and reverse, providing a decent amount of maneuverability with their dinosaur. They also tried to change the growth process by adding a quest system, although it ended up being very simplistic and an extremely long and monotonous experience, making it not very good, unfortunately. But the devs are open to feedback and already stated that quests will be improved upon in the future, so fingers crossed. Throughout the years, the game has been continuously getting new updates at a steady pace, not only adding new features and mechanics, but also dinosaurs. Path of Titans' roster is very unique in comparison to other games within the genre, due to the fact that they decided to go with rather obscure and unknown species that are frequently overshadowed by more famous ones, with Metriacanthosaurus, Camptosaurus and Alioramus being some good examples. On top of that, they also wanted to offer visual diversity on each individual dinosaur, and with that in mind they decided to add subspecies, not only giving players the chance of discovering new dinosaurs that they never heard of, but also providing visual choices like skin color, skin pattern to the community, allowing them to customize their dinosaur in more depth in comparison to other games. And since we are talking about dinosaurs, it is worth pointing out that Path currently has a roster of 30, making it the game with the highest number of playable characters, having more than even Legacy Isle, which is very surprising if you ask me. and they cover a decent amount of families as well: Hadrosaurus, Ceratopsians, Ankylosauroids, Sauropods, Tyrannosaurus, Raptors, Carnosaurs, Lizards, Flying Reptiles, Marine Reptiles, Crocodiles, whatever this thing is, Spinosaurids, Stegosaurids, the list goes on. The species and gameplay variety is pretty great, especially the latter due to the ability system they added a while ago, which allows players to change their dinosaur's diet, agility, survivability and combat capabilities, further increasing the level of customization. That isn't to say that all these mechanics are amazingly implemented. There's a reason why people complain about balancing after all, but in comparison to what these features offer to players, balance issues are a rather minor problem that, to an extent, is overweighted by the positive aspects these features provide. But their first major breakthrough, at least in my opinion, was the introduction of modding. Something not seen since Legacy Isle in 2017, mods in Path of Titans were a huge step forward. Initially that wasn't as evident since the game was a lot less popular at the time, and therefore not many people were messing with the dev kit, so their first iterations were very simplistic. But modding doesn't instantly impact the game just like that. It's a slow burner that the longer it exists, the higher the influence it has over the game. Slowly over time, people learn how to use the tool properly, more people show up, more talented modders emerge, and in Path just 1 year later, we are finally seeing the fruits of such an early implementation, with amazing mods that add fully fledged dinosaurs into the game, new maps, combat balance changes, extra skins, and this is in a single year. Who knows what we will have in 2 or 3 from now. Alderon made sure players could modify their game in almost every aspect, and even though that might not be important right now, that will ensure that the game can live on for years to come, even when the developers finish their work. With modding, as long as the community loves the game, there will be always something new to try out. If Minecraft and Skyrim proved something, is that with these tools, players can contribute to the game's longevity for decades, delivering amazing work that sometimes even surpasses the developers themselves, and with Path, there's no big reason to doubt that the same won't happen eventually. And since we are talking about tech stuff, now is a good segue for another big step made by the devs that, honestly, its importance seemed to have been a bit underestimated by the community. The upgrade to Unreal Engine 5. Beasts of Bermuda, The Isle, and of course Path of Titans all share the same engine, Unreal, more specifically Unreal Engine 4, first released in March 2014, so it's a somewhat old engine at this point. Not that this affects the games though. Lost Ark, for example, uses Unreal Engine 3, believe it or not. That was first released in 2007, and the game looks and functions just as well, if not better sometimes, than the majority of games currently. However, newer engines tend to be more flexible and easier to work with, especially for people starting their careers as game developers or simply gaming enthusiasts. But Unreal 5 is different. With its release 8 months ago, UE5 is basically revolutionizing game development in a way and speed that we never seen before. There is a massive list of changes, but we don't need to know all of them, only the 3 most important ones. And those are Lumen, Nanite, and backward compatibility. Lumen is the engine's lighting system that offers true global illumination. Before this, developers had to manually pre-illuminate their environments through a process named light baking, which essentially renders light before the game is played. This process was not only time-consuming, but also didn't work in real time. With Lumen, light is traced and baked automatically in real time, and making so light reacts with objects accordingly, functioning almost as a simulation of real-life light. Nanites do a similar thing, but with meshes. Every model in a video game is composed of tiny polygons. The bigger the number of polygons, the longer it takes the computer to render them. To counteract this, there's something called level of detail, or LOD for short, which changes the model to lower polygon versions of itself the further it is from the player's camera. The problem with LODs is that they have to be manually made and implemented into the game, and the lower the polygon count, the worse it looks. With Nanite, LODs are made dynamically by the engine itself, which means that devs can add millions of polygons and Nanite will change them in real time to keep performance. This takes a huge amount of development time and maintains the overall shape of the objects even if they are thousands of kilometers away. And with backwards compatibility, it is possible to transfer entire projects from Unreal Engine 4 to 5 with relative ease. This is a huge advancement. Now everything that was done in the previous engine still has value since it can be ported to the new version, something that didn't happen from 3 to 4. Switching versions may be possible now, but it's still relatively time consuming, and the larger your game is, the longer it will take to complete the transition. And Alderon knew that, working on the engine upgrade 2 full months before Unreal Engine would officially launch. A huge investment that immediately paid off with better lighting and huge performance improvements being the most impactful differences. But not even this was their biggest achievement. Having the biggest roster, the best performance, the access to modding, all of that does make the game very appealing for sure, but that's not what's making Path so important for this genre's future. Since its announcement, Path of Titans was always advertised as a dinosaur game for both PC and mobile devices. At first people were highly skeptical because, well, it's a mobile game. But eventually we discovered that our fears were unfounded, since Mobile Path is actually an almost one-to-one port of the PC version. Now this is big. Keep in mind that POT is not on Steam. It has its own website and launcher, meaning that it's very hard to know the game exists if you're not within the community already, and therefore it's very easy to miss it. With the edition All Mobile, there's a massive opportunity right there to attract millions of people. But they didn't stop there either. Eventually they also released Path of Titans on the Switch, and finally, with this last update, they released on both PlayStation and Xbox. Currently, this game is on 10 different platforms. From Windows, Mac and Linux, 2 generations of consoles, to Switch and both mobile operating systems. This is absolutely massive. No matter where you play, you can play Path of Titans. Cross-platform, by the way. This is the first time the entire gaming community has direct access to this genre, and with everyone being able to play together only makes it more alive. People have been waiting for games like this. Just look at the views the Gondu update alone has been getting. It's everywhere. Never this genre was so exposed to the public. And with a huge roster, great performance, modding, community servers, thoughtful mechanics and a very dedicated dev team, in my honest opinion, there is no other game that deserves being in the spotlight more than Path of Titans. The game may not be a masterpiece, we may have issues with it, you may even dislike the game, but none of us can deny how much it is doing to the dinosaur survival genre that we love so much. The future is bright, my friends. The future is bright. Thank you so much for watching. A huge thank you to my Patreon supporters for supporting the channel and the content I create. If you want to join the ranks, the link will be in the description. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and opinions down below. Join our Discord server for memes and paleo nerd stuff. Hope to see you next week, and Merry Christmas.